No, 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 you really aren't getting it. I'm so sorry. Modern physics is exceedingly mysterious. It really is. I mean, have you tried to read some of the difficult modern physics books? It really is very difficult to understand. Our brains were not built to understand the profundities of the origin of the universe, the end of the universe, the kind of things that physicists deal with. I think it's actually amazing that at least some human brains are capable of dealing with this kind of stuff. My brain isn't, and nor is yours.
Richard Dawkins has been the poster child of strident atheism since the early 2000s, and he's still out there, but the conversation culturally has been changing, and you can see this when he talked to Piers Morgan not long ago. Now, I love the fact that these kinds of conversations are happening at all in these kinds of forums. So in this case, though, I think that Dawkins is obviously on the ropes because he sets up kind of a conundrum for himself and even a contradiction. Well, hi, I'm Brett, and I've been a pastor a really long time, and here at One Life Network, we enjoy engaging in cultural conversations from a Christ-centered worldview with those who believe and those who do not. So if that sounds like something you'd enjoy, please subscribe and leave a comment. Now, in the context of this clip, it's a part two, where Piers, who says he believes in God, he presses Dawkins on what happened before the Big Bang. Now, after he himself talked to Dr. Stephen Meyer, and we've featured him on this channel before, so check this out.
What is there before it starts? What is nothing?
This is a question for a physicist, not a biologist, but what I would answer to Professor Meyer is that we need to explain complexity in terms of simplicity. And of course, it's true that I cannot say what was there before the Big Bang.
Now, keep track of that statement that he just made for a reason I'll point out here in a minute. We have to explain complexity in terms of simplicity.
Physicists sometimes tell us that the word before doesn't even mean anything before the Big Bang. But whatever it was,
but it has to, doesn't it?
You cannot suddenly invoke...
Doesn't it have to? I mean, someone as logical as you are, and I believe you are, you think about this all very logically. A logical mind surely has to appreciate that before the Big Bang, there has to have been something before then. Otherwise, what is nothing?
A physicist will tell you that
yeah, but what do you tell me?
I'm trying to tell you what a physicist would say first of all. They would say that you cannot use the word before for the Big Bang. Time began at the Big Bang. There was no before the Big Bang. I know it's contrary to common sense. Physicists don't necessarily deal with common sense.
Well, it makes no sense, does it? And that's what I mean. I think you're a logical man. That cannot make sense to you. The idea that you're not even allowed to use the word before the Big Bang, when every part of both of our brains tells us that that's obviously nonsensical, doesn't that make you think again?
We are not physicists. I, like you, am completely baffled by what physicists say to me, which is that you cannot use the word before for before the Big Bang. Time itself began at the Big Bang. Now, that is totally counterintuitive. It's counterintuitive to me, it's counterintuitive to you, it's counterintuitive to Stephen Meyer, but we are not physicists. And you need to talk to a physicist. Talk to a physicist about that. And they...
Okay, so first of all, it's important to point out that he kind of rides this horse where he's saying you need to talk to a physicist. His area of expertise is biology, but for many, many years and many, many books, and philosophers have pointed this out, he deals in philosophy, and he's not a philosopher. He's not educated as a philosopher, yet he has, and he did it a while ago. He said, we need to explain complexity in terms of simplicity. It's a philosophical statement that he makes. And by the way, philosophers have pointed out he's a lousy philosopher because he's not one. And so he's kind of punting over to this other area of expertise. You just need to talk to a physicist. You need to talk to a physicist. Well, some physicists will tell you that it is meaningful to think in terms of before, because the whole Big Bang concept is if you could hit the rewind button on the universe, it would go back to a point. So it does make sense to say there was something before that backward final point, even if they don't call it time. And that's a very important thing to point out.
They will tell you that you cannot use the word before for the Big Bang.
Yeah, but you think that's as preposterous as I do.
I do, because I'm not a physicist.
You've just written a book as a biologist called The Genetic Book of the Dead, in which you talk about the body and the genome, comprehensive dossiers and so on. So you're prepared to expound a philosophy based on that as a biologist, which I completely respect, and it makes perfect sense. The book makes perfect sense the way that you have written it. But why would you then think that a physicist cannot be contradicted just simply because they're a physicist? I could contradict what you say as a biologist.
No, you really aren't getting it. I'm so sorry. Modern physics is exceedingly mysterious. It really is. I mean, have you tried to read some of the difficult modern physics books? It really is very difficult to understand. And intuition doesn't do it. You cannot use human intuition. Human intuition was built up by evolution over many millions of years to survive on the African plain, hunting and gathering, looking for waterholes, looking for mates and so on. Our brains were not built to understand the profundities of the origin of the universe, the end of the universe, the kind of things that physicists deal with. I think it's actually amazing that at least some human brains are capable of dealing with this kind of stuff. My brain isn't, and nor is yours.
I think he felt himself going into the contradiction there, because he makes this whole case of our brains were built, all human brains were built, through this evolutionary process that was interested in hunting and gathering and surviving. We weren't designed to, go after the mysteries of the universe, except some. That he you can tell he feels himself going into that ditch, because he absolutely did. There are some out there, and they're called physicists. Their brains were built to comprehend those things.
But that's my point, though.
I wish it were.
Well, yeah, I wish both our brains could. But the truth is, it's because the human brain can't comprehend this, including, I don't think, any physicist. Because the moment they say you can't have before the Big Bang, they lose me completely just on a common sense perspective. It's that reason that I think there has to be a power that is greater than the human brain. And that gives me succor to my belief in God, and why I think people turn to gods of different types, obviously. They turn to that because it is incomprehensible otherwise what has happened here.
There has to be something more difficult to understand than the human brain can understand. I accept that. But it doesn't have to be God. It doesn't have to be the kind of God who, I don't know, forgives sins and listens to prayers and things like that. There is something very mysterious, and I don't understand it, and you don't understand it, and maybe we never will. I think it's not clear whether physicists understand it. Some do, some don't, but it's obviously going to be very mysterious. But God is not that interesting mystery. God is just a personification of human desires, a father figure, something like that, somebody who looks after you. You said at the beginning that it was comforting for you. A God is somebody who listens to prayers, who forgives sins, who takes action for the benefit of humanity or not, as the case may be. We're not talking about that now. We're talking about deeply, deeply mysterious, profound things which physics is working on, and it's very difficult to understand. And the fact that you don't understand it and I don't understand it is not good grounds for suddenly invoking a supernatural sky daddy.
All kinds of interesting things inside there, because you can hear him going back and forth between it, kind of giving the point that, that's so mysterious, there's just no understanding it. It's just, there's something, and we have to rely on physicists to do this. And then he kicks out of biology mode and he goes over into theology mode, and he's making declarations about what's possible and what's not possible, about what God would, there wouldn't be a God that would forgive sins, or you can connect. Well, why not? Why wouldn't there be a mind that can connect with our minds and listen to us, can communicate in a meaningful way, which is the concept of God? And the Christian concept of God very much is, on one hand, the Bible is very clear that his ways are not our ways. He is mysterious. There's a lot of mystery there. But on the other hand, he's also comprehensible enough to engage with and talk to. And there's no contradiction between those ideas at all, any more than there is in the deep mysteries of physics on one hand, and you and I being able to play a game of pool using the laws of physics at the same time. There's no contradiction inherent in all of that. And so I want to give you a couple of quotes that help with this kind of thing. That are two of my favorite. Number one, remember Einstein said that the most incomprehensible thing about the universe is that it's comprehensible. And he was able to make that observation. Also, G.K. Chesterton said, "It is absurd for the evolutionist to complain that it is unthinkable for an admittedly unthinkable God to make everything out of nothing and then pretend that it is more thinkable that nothing should turn itself into everything." We all get the mystery part of it, whether it's God or not. But it's interesting that Richard Dawkins is hiding behind mystery. By the way, One Life Network is becoming a real legit network right now. We're networking with other channels, and one channel I want to send you to, because my friend Dr. Braxton Hunter does a great job explaining the kinds of things that we're talking about in this video. I'd love for you to go and check that out. I hope all of this helps. See you next time.